Good evening. It's good to see all of you here, especially our Mitchell Technical College students. Now, you all are a part of a program. What's the name of the program? Human Services. Okay, great. Well, it's great to have you here. I'm so glad you are here, and welcome to everyone else that's come. And Jane, good to see you. So it's great to have everyone here to learn more about human trafficking. It's an odd thing to talk about it on Valentine's Day, but there's a certain appropriateness to it as well. And so it's good to have you here. We've learned a lot about human trafficking this morning with Margaret Doom, who was here and spoke. And now Monica Rilling is here to speak with us too. And we're very happy to have her. So I'm going to read a little bit about Monica. She's the Director of Community Engagement for Call to Freedom. And since, I'm sorry, my phone keeps trying to install something. Okay, here we go. Since 2017, Monica was invited by a friend to attend a Call to Freedom community breakfast. Hearing survivors share their stories about and how Call to Freedom walked by them through their journey from being a victim to being a survivor, this opened her eyes. Monica knew that she had to get involved somehow, so she began volunteering in several areas of the organization. And then in March of 2021, a job opened up for her, and Monica accepted the position and is passionate about sharing the mission and vision of Call to Freedom to help build awareness in the community about human trafficking and to help to stop this hidden crime. So thank you for being here, and help me to welcome Monica Rilling this evening.
Okay, I'm going to take this off because I'm kind of a walker, so maybe, there we go. Okay. So thank you guys all for having me tonight, and thank you on Valentine's Day for being here. So how many of you before this morning when Margaret spoke had heard about Call to Freedom and what we do? Okay, so a few of you. So people that are not familiar, we are a nonprofit located in Sioux Falls. We provide supportive services to victims of human trafficking and sexual exploitation. So again, that's throughout the state. So it's not just in Sioux Falls. We do have services throughout the state as well. I'm going to share a little bit about our executive director's story before I get started on everything, because some people are like, well, how did Call to Freedom come about? In 2015, our executive director now, Becky Rasmussen, was doing an outreach in Sturgis, South Dakota during the rally. She really didn't know what the outreach was going to look like at that time, but she had ran across a young girl that was just very broken. You could tell she was very in distress, and things were happening in her life at that time. And Becky didn't hear a lot about her story, but knew something was going on. So later on that evening, she went back to where everybody else was kind of compiled together and just discussing their day and what their outreach looked like. And she just felt drawn that she had to look through this missing persons book. She just really felt like something was going to happen, and so she started flipping through the pages and saw the gal's picture that she had actually just been visiting with earlier in the day, and found out that her name was Marissa. She had been missing, and then she was found, and then went missing again, and now again she is still missing. So Becky knew at that time that she needed to do something about this. This hidden crime is something that happens. It's very, the traffickers know what they're doing. They're very smart when situations like this happen. So she came back and was working a full-time position and just started Call to Freedom, basically volunteering her time with herself and then a few other volunteers. So fast forward, we now have 27 staff. So we are not slowing down by any means, and that includes clients walking through our doors, which I'll get into a few more statistics and stats and things like that here a little later on as well. But first gonna show a quick video. I don't know if that volume was working very well. I do have another video later on, so hopefully we can get that to be a little bit louder. But just wanting to define what actually human trafficking is. So this definition is actually from the Polaris website. Human trafficking is defined as the use of force, fraud, or coercion to compel a person in commercial sex acts or labor against their will. Now, those three elements of force, fraud, or coercion, I am going to dig a little bit deeper into that, but know that if they are under the age of 18, so if they are considered youth, those three elements do not need to take place. Basically, just a transaction or a trade needs to happen. So it could be a nude picture or something like that in trade for money, and that is considered human trafficking if they are under the age of 18. So talking about those force, fraud, and coercion, again, it can look like abuse. So the force piece is any physical restraint, physical harm, sexual, rape could be considered this as well. So the force piece is the main thing that happens first. And then we can look at that fraud piece. That's any false promises. This can be in sex trafficking as well as labor trafficking. So again, telling them that they're coming to you, coming for a better job, or maybe it's something they're going to be doing some modeling, things like that. Those traffickers will tell them anything they want to hear and making them believe that. So anything for a better life, lies that are happening as well. And then the coercion piece is, again, the threats against anybody else. So this could be threatening to a family member. They may say, if you don't do this, I know your brother, or I know your sister, or I know I'm going to tell your parents. So again, just that shame, manipulation, that bondage that kind of happens throughout that as well. Just defining, again, a little bit more about human trafficking. So there are two elements. Is labor trafficking as well as sex trafficking. They both happen here in South Dakota. We had a gentleman actually share his story at our community breakfast. We have a community breakfast every year, and survivors share their stories of kind of what their path has looked like, but also the services that we offer and kind of helping them guide their way through their call to freedom and the journey as well. But he shared his story about his labor trafficking situation, and it started out as, again, that trafficker was telling him, hey, if you come, we will provide you with a lot of money, you'll be able to help your family, you'll be able to live in a beautiful place. Once he got here, he was working, again, it's locally around this area, so it was a restaurant, and he was starting to work 16-hour days, making very, very minimal wage. It wasn't even enough to basically pay rent. He was living with probably 12 people in a very small place, and documentation was taken away, so he did not have birth certificates anymore. He didn't have social security cards. There's no transportation, malnourished. Towards the end of his journey, he was actually starting to get abused by this trafficker as well. So when we got him out, again, for a national population, he wasn't able to speak English very well, but what was happening is he just thought this is what life was supposed to be like in America. He didn't realize that you aren't treated like that. So just educating him that, going and working at a job, that's not normal. So finally, now that he's understanding, his journey is amazing. He has an awesome job. He's working hard, just very successful in that. But that's partially that labor piece of it. So it can be anywhere from housekeeping, nannying, restaurants, agriculture. We all kind of live, obviously, in South Dakota. Agriculture is going to be a huge thing. Construction companies, we see this in as well, where they are paying people very, very minimal wage, and obviously they may be working there for 7, 8, 9 years, and their wage doesn't change. The sex trafficking piece, again, this can happen anywhere from, sexual exploitation, but also that survival sex is what we see a lot. College students, we talk about this all the time, just as far as, leaving the home, no longer having parents, but just that need. Sometimes the trafficker will reach out and say, hey, I will buy you XYZ if you do this, or just providing you with gifts and things like that. But that survival sex is where we really see a lot of that happening, where they're just trying to make ends meet. They need to pay rent. They need to get groceries. So they're doing that. Pornography and stripping, obviously hotels and motels, we see that a lot as well, and then escort systems, and then just that exchanging of videos and photos. Young people, obviously, in their hands all the time, phones. That is like one of the major things that we're trying to educate our youth on is do's and don'ts of social media, what that looks like. If somebody's reaching out to you and you don't know who they are, kind of what to do in that case as well. But again, education prevention is a huge thing that we're doing with Call to Freedom. Obviously, Margaret was here today, but we are getting in school districts as well, just to not only educate the administrative staff and teachers, but also educating the students in those healthy relationships as well. Now, these are some signs of human trafficking. I'm going to talk a little bit about this because a lot of people come to these and they're like, well, what can I do? What happens if I see something? Some signs of human trafficking. Everybody obviously has a role to play in combating human trafficking. Just recognizing the signs of trafficking is the first step. So I'm not sure, I think Margaret maybe talked about this today, but again, just, avoiding eye contact. If you see somebody with an older adult, male, female, younger child, that child is not able to speak for themselves, they don't make eye contact, those sometimes can be some red flags or some signs as well. Malnourishment, poor hygiene. We have some young youth actually that have went through our program that they were actually working late at night. So they'd come to school and sleep through the day. So just kind of those signs, again, educating teachers and staff of what that looks like. But again, any sort of, unusual behaviors, if they're starting to outlash, maybe it's not normal for them to be like that. And then they don't have any control of anything. So that would be their ID, birth certificate, social security cards, all of that is taken away from them, so they have no access to even, basically live, because those sort of things you need in order to live. And then also any verbal threats, emotional, that's the force piece that comes into play there. And then buying you nice gifts. If you're noticing family members coming home with brand new cell phones or watches or new clothing, asking those questions like, where did you get that? How did you get that? And again, just kind of educating them on, they're going to want something in return. They might be buying you these things right now, but what are they going to want later on down the road? And then again, that physical abuse. And then just the constantly monitoring, so that person will always have an eye out. So if they're, in a restaurant or something like that, they will always be kind of in contact with each other. They won't ever let that person kind of leave their side. Unfortunately, there is a sex trafficking ecosystem. I'm going to talk a little bit about this because some people, it's hard for them to understand how this kind of happens. It's not like the movie Taken. So it's not like somebody gets snatched up, taken away. Does that happen? Yes, it can. But a lot of the times there is a grooming process that happens. So it's usually somebody that they know. So they might meet them at the mall or the coffee shop or something like that, and eventually they will start to just get that that friend kind of concept. Eventually it will kind of turn into love, or they think it's love. But there's always going to be a sexual buyer. So there is a person that is actually purchasing the sex that the trafficker will reach out to, and then that's how that victim happens. So what that looks like, if we can eliminate that buyer, that person that is actually buying the sex, it'll eventually eliminate this whole ecosystem. So really what's happening is the buyer will reach out to the trafficker and say, I want a blonde-haired, blue-eyed girl from South Dakota. That trafficker is going to find that person. Again, it might not take a night, it might take a little bit of time, but once that trafficker has that, they're very specific as to what they're wanting, and then that's how that victim happens. So again, sometimes that trafficker can also be the buyer as well, but a lot of the times there is a buyer involved, and sometimes it might not even be in this area. It might be Chicago or Minneapolis, so they are transferring them around the states as well. I'm going to talk about a few realities. These are global realities. So human trafficking is actually the second largest industry in the world, but it's the fastest growing. Does anybody have any idea why it's the fastest growing? Did Margaret talk about this at all today? No. The reason it's the fastest growing is because drugs is number one. Drugs are always going to be kind of included in human trafficking for the most part, but drugs can only, that's one transaction that happens. It's a one and done. A human can be sold over and over and over again daily. So it's the fastest growing because of that. There's approximately 40 million that are trapped in modern day slavery today, and again, that's globally. 1 to 3% of victims are ever identified. The biggest thing is because they don't feel safe. If they don't feel safe, they're not going to come out. They're not going to share. They might be able to get out, but again, that debt bondage that they have no means. A lot of their needs are met by their trafficker, whether it's transportation, money, anything like that. Those victims are always kind of going to be trapped if they don't feel safe to get out. And then 80 to 88% of trafficking victims actually connect with healthcare organizations. The reason that is so high is because a lot of the times the victims or the traffickers will take them to the hospital to, if they have repeatedly infections or things like that. So we, again, really trying to educate the healthcare world as well. Clinics, I know Margaret's we go to a lot of the just smaller clinics, hospitals, just to educate the staff there as to, what they need to look for if a victim does come in and what to do in that case, because a lot of the times the trafficker will be sitting right next to them. So if they get pulled into, the room and maybe they need to go have an x-ray done, that trafficker then, if they're suspicious of something like that happening, they can bring that victim out and get them in a safe place. These are realities here in South Dakota. So again, every year at the Sturgis Bike Rally, there's a sting operation done. It's not a ground ops, it's actually just an ad that is put in the paper. So in 2022, so just last year alone here, 6 arrests happened. So an ad went out to the paper basically selling a young child. A dad was selling a young child. That's what their ad was about. 6 arrests happened, and all of them were South Dakota residents. So people are answering these ads, and again, they're people here that live right in our state. The Midwest Pipeline, I-20 and I-90, that's kind of in the Sioux Falls area, but again, I-90 runs right here too. So Mitchell is a great place for that transportation to happen. A lot of the times we do see, things that are transferring from basically Minneapolis to out to Rapid, Wyoming, Chicago. It's that corridor that is happening there as well. These are referral numbers that walked through our doors. We do have other stats as well as active clients, but in 2021, I just wanted to compare these two so you can see the growth that is walking through our doors. These are Call to Freedom stats. In 2021, 267 referrals walked through the doors of Call to Freedom. Only we had 16 that were youth. Just last year here, we had 312 referrals that walked through our doors, and 32 of them were youth. So that's 18 and under. I'm going to show the next stat here. You can see 98% of our clients are female, and then 2% are male. We are seeing an increase in some of our males as well, but again, males do not identify as well as females do because, again, they feel a lot more shame. So we're trying to, again, let them know that this is what's happening. If it is happening to you, educating them as to what that looks like. Our age range for our clients, super sad, but we do have a 5-year-old right now, all the way up to 72 years old. So again, that age range of clients that are walking through our doors is a wide variety. A lot of the older clients that walk through our doors say that they actually were not identified at a younger age. They realized now that that's what was happening at that younger age. So again, they really didn't identify that they were being trafficked until they were older. And then I'm not going to go through these stats, but you can see the types of victimizations that are happening and the percentages of that as well. And then so Call to Freedom is 7 years old. Since we'd opened our doors, we've served a little over 900 clients. So This next video I'm going to show you is a true story about Mary actually wasn't able to be here tonight. She was going to come with me and she was unable to make it. But I want you to hear her story and just, it brings it home because actually she's from Sioux Falls. So.
My nightmare began over 30 years ago. I was a young lady at the time, raised in Sioux Falls, graduating from a local high school. After trying to attend college, I decided I wanted to see the world, find out what was out there for me. At age 19, I moved to the East Coast to be a nanny. I was filled with excitement and joy as what the world had to offer me. It was not the journey I had expected or asked for. My excitement and joy eventually turned, and I would enter a dark world, a very dark world. I was led into a world of abuse, physical, sexual, verbal, eventually to being trafficked, labor and sex trafficked. Saying those words today is not easy. No one wants anyone to know they were trafficked, raped, beaten, locked in an apartment, forced to do things that to this day I simply cannot discuss. I met my trafficker on the East Coast. Looking back now, I see how I was targeted, especially knowing I was from the Midwest. His friends got to know my friends. We hung out, started dating. This man would eventually become my husband, and we would have a son together. I was quickly swept off my feet. Here I found a man who loved me, treated me great, took care of me. When I felt I had nowhere to go, this was love for me. It was anything but love. The abuse I experienced started out slow, as with the cycle of abuse. He hit me, isolated me, verbally abused me, and then say how very sorry he was, and it would never happen again. This is the cycle. Brainwashing, manipulation, abuse, trafficking had taken over without me even understanding. To know I was trafficked by an international cartel out of Colombia, South America, brings shame, guilt, fear. But with the help of the counselors, support of my family and friends, the community, the FBI, DEA, State Department, I am alive and well today. My mother, who has passed away, always felt I would come home in a body bag, as would happen to so many of my friends. This international cartel kidnapped my son when he was 2 months old, to control me, to force me to do things I did not want to do, and to continue to make them a lot of money. This was the world of drug dealing, trafficking, and arms dealing. I quickly learned the world can be not such a good place with very bad people. I now know my son and I, we were the lucky ones. We did return home by the grace of God and those who knew something just wasn't right. After law enforcement, State Department, and some extremely beautiful people from Sioux Falls, I returned home, but there were no services for me. No one knew what to do with me. Through my own journey of victim to survivor, good did prevail. All the people who were involved in my case have been killed or in prison. My son is now 30, graduated from college, lives a beautiful life in another state. As for myself, I received lots of counseling, support from my family. I went back to college. I have a great job, and I give back by mentoring victims on their journey to being a survivor through Call to Freedom. I thank God for Call to Freedom. I thank God for the services they provide, but more are needed. I have no fear, and the chains have been broken. I was given that chance to live and to be free. My story is to help others. It is not about me, but what people can learn from it. The greatest thing I can do is serve and never give my traffickers, even though they've been killed, the power to control my future and remain in the past. Mentoring the survivors has reaffirmed what I already knew. Basic needs should be met once a survivor has gotten out. The first basic need I hear from every survivor is, where do I go? Where do I live? And I have no skills. If there is no housing available, they are so vulnerable to go back into that world. It is not because they want to go back, but because they know nothing else. Housing allows for them to begin a new chapter, their own journey of healing and understanding true freedom. They begin to learn unconditional love, not conditional love. One survivor had said to me, "Why are you getting me food? Why are you buying me clothes? What do I have to do in return?" I hold their hands and I let them know they are loved unconditionally. They can now breathe and rest. Healing is a very long process, and it starts with the survivor being safe, in a safe environment, transitioning to become a productive part of the community. From the ladies I have mentored, their gifts are amazing. Some are now in college, most are on their own. They may be reunited with their children, and they're forming good, healthy relationships with family, and some can even give back. But unfortunately, more housing is needed. More housing is needed as more victims come forward. In the housing, they learn the skills needed. They can learn how to cook, find jobs, wash clothes, but more importantly, they are safe and free to not be vulnerable to return to that life. If housing is not available, where are these survivors to go? I was fortunate to have a family where I could live, but so many do not. I do not know where I would be today without that help, but many of the survivors I mentor through Call to Freedom do not have this. My hope and prayers are for us as a community to come together, not to allow this to happen in our city or state. I have seen firsthand the positive impact Call to Freedom has had on the survivors, and I am grateful they are here to help and serve those victimized. The need is great and starts with basic needs of being free, chains broken, living in a safe place with food, clothing, counseling services, as the journey is long, but we are worth it.
So that's Mary's story. She usually comes with me and is able to share, but like I said, she wasn't able to make it tonight. But she oversees kind of our volunteer mentors. So we have mentors that come in and just kind of connect with the ladies, anywhere from our Marissa's Housing Project to our outreach clients, just kind of bringing them and developing them and giving them hope that there is hope. So wanting to talk about a few different types. You heard Mary that she was actually trafficked by a drug cartel. We do have gangs in South Dakota. We have gangs in Sioux Falls. Some of them are those onesie-twosies, but those cartel gangs actually intervene and weave their way into families. They weave their way into school districts. So we're starting to see a little bit more of the gangs, but also that familial trafficking. That is going to be a family member that is actually trafficking their own child. We have some youngsters right now that were actually trafficked by their dad. So we are kind of walking that journey with them right now. But again, that familial can be, and a lot of the times they're just selling them for a pack of cigarettes or a case of beer. It's not even, I mean, that's the piece that is really hard to swallow, because that is somebody you're trusting, somebody you're supposed to be loving. So that familial trafficking is definitely something we do see quite often. in this area. And then the events, again, Sturgis Rally, Super Bowl, anything that has those large events or large people that are gathering, there is probably more than likely going to be human trafficking that's happening, whether it's happening directly there or they are transporting people. Hunting season, we see that a lot with hunting lodges, bars, restaurants, things like that. When a lot of people are coming from other states to visit our state, we see trafficking happening during that time as well. I'm going to share a little bit about Call to Freedom and the different services that we offer. Like I'd mentioned back in 2016, it was Becky and some volunteers. Since then, we have added quite a few. We call it a Continuum of Care. So what that looks like is when a client or a victim walks through our doors, they're greeted with love, but the first thing we ask them is, are they safe? If they aren't safe, we make sure that's the number one thing that we get them, whether it's moving them somewhere else out of state. If they're safe here, then what does safety look like? Is it housing? Is it a shelter? What is that to them? But we navigate them through our case managers. We have case managers, whether they are within our jails and prisons. We have reentry case managers down there. We have housing navigators. The housing navigator is great because they are actually building connections in our community with different housing projects. So that could be anywhere from landlords and apartments, making sure that they're safe apartments for our clients to be living in. Occupational therapists, a lot of people are like, okay, what does that do, or what do they do in a setting like this? It's actually pretty awesome and unique, because when our occupational therapists start to work with our clients, a lot of them don't know how to prep meals. They don't know budgeting. They don't have parent skills, things like that, that some of those occupational therapists can just help with and cope with. Sleeping, a lot of them can't sleep. So what helps them kind of sleep better, things like that as well. So occupational therapists really work just in that area. And then also we have a parenting case manager that's on staff. So helping them, a lot of them have kids that they're reunifying with, but it's hard because they're trying to navigate their own journey, let alone their kids' journeys as well. So the parenting case manager is key with that. Again, the youth team, we have navigators that are out educating school districts, but we also have the clinical side of things too, so helping them work through some therapy with the addiction side of things, coping skills, all of that. And then the last one I'm going to talk about is actually our Marissa's Housing Project. So last year in April of 2022, so just last year, we broke the ground, or we opened the doors to our new facility. It opened in April of 2022. We had an older facility. It was 7 units, and they were small efficiency apartments. So clients were coming in and were actually having to leave the program early because it's supportive housing, but they were having to leave because a lot of their kids were coming back and wanting to reunify with them. And we said, okay, we want this is great, but they can't be housed in our current facility. So we opened the doors to this 12 unit. There's 3 bedrooms, there's 2 bedrooms, and then there's 1 bedroom apartments. It's currently full right now, so it's full of 12 ladies, and then we have 10 kiddos that are actually living there now as well, that are with their moms. We have 1 mom that actually has 5 kids, and then 2 brand new babies that just were born here in the past couple weeks. So it's wonderful. They're able to have parenting classes. There's Bible studies on Wednesday nights. They have groups, so there's volunteers that come in and help them with like art therapy. We have dog therapy that come into the house and in the community room. And then the clients really are just uniting with each other. It's great. Some of them make meals for one another, but it's just really great to see a community. But a lot of them don't feel like they're deserving of this. It's a beautiful place. So when they walk in the doors, they're like, this is mine. This is what I get to live in. They have to pay rent. They have to work. They have to be clean and sober. So there is obviously a process that they have to go through and apply in order to live in the Marissa's Housing Project. So that's one piece. And then our outreach side is where all of the clients that are living in the community, so either in a shelter or an apartment or on their own and doing well. So those are kind of the 2 different areas that we have. So if you're wondering about ways to get involved, I did put, so obviously Call to Freedom, we're located in Sioux Falls. You guys do have actually a local rip off one of those pull tabs and keep it in a safe place until they're able to actually call that number. That's always something that we're in need of, but I know she would be in need of as well. But we are also part of the East River Human Trafficking Task Force. So Safe Place, Call to Freedom, and other organizations are all on a task force team together, just helping to combat this this hidden crime that we're seeing. So that's one way. Obviously, giving wish list items, things like that. Requesting trainings or speaking engagements, like I'm here right now. So that's another way to get involved. Smile.Amazon. If you shop on Amazon, Call to Freedom, you can support us through that. We also have, I'm going to go through all of these, we have luncheons, so they're quarterly luncheons. We have our next one is April 20th. This is where you would actually hear from other members of our staff. So from case managers to the housing navigators to, we have Marissa's Housing Project, some of the case managers that are there that would just come in and share more in depth as to exactly what their roles are and what they do throughout Call to Freedom. But those are going to be, everything's on our website, but those are quarterly. We also have our 8th annual community breakfast. I shared a little bit about what that is, but every October we have one fundraiser a year, and October 11th is that this year. It's a Wednesday, it's a breakfast in the morning, it's at the Sioux Falls Convention Center. You hear from community leaders, you'll hear from survivors, you also hear from our executive director and other people just sharing again kind of their journey through Call to Freedom and how all of that looked. And then we also have community trainings. These are specified. We just had a college training last month, but coming up here next week, we actually have human trafficking training awareness for businesses. And so each month we're specifying. We were hearing from a lot of community partners and people that are in just different business industries that they were really wanting to get more educated on what human trafficking is and signs to look for. We had a hair salon call us and say, hey, you need to come in and educate us. We feel like, people are some girls are coming in quite often getting their hair done and nails done, and there's a gentleman, so just things like that they're wanting to be more aware of. So we felt that we really needed to bring this to more of the community and specifying exactly different areas there. And then we do have a parent connection as well. I'm going to touch on this. Actually, it's a 3-series. So January, February, March was the first 3 series. So the 3rd series is the providing support. But starting over in April will be, again, just the human trafficking piece. This is just really for parents to get educated in general of, what to do if they are suspicious of their kids. Or the social media is huge too, just different apps that they can help to kind of monitor their kids, but then the providing support if they are thinking something could happen or maybe the vulnerabilities of their kiddos, that is something that we can help support as well. So all of these are on our website. And the last exciting thing, so Mary shared her story, but we had a grandmother reach out to us. She was actually, her granddaughter was the first client that walked through the doors of Call to Freedom, and she was a victim of human trafficking. They put together a parent guide. It's awesome. There's stories in here. There is just, if you ever have questions or just think that you don't understand, or maybe there is something going on, this is a great guide for all of that. Ruth said when she wrote it, she really didn't know what it was going to bring or entail, but at the end she's like, if I would have known some of the stuff that I wrote how many ever years ago when it actually her granddaughter was being trafficked, they maybe could have helped stop that from happening. So it's huge. It's actually, you can purchase it on Amazon right now. But again, that's something that we are very, very proud of here at Call to Freedom. Okay. Is there any questions at all? Yeah?
I know you talked about this like a while ago. That sting operation that you guys did at Sturgis, you said that they put an ad in the paper. Is that like a common thing that traffickers do? Is they put ads in like certain websites or certain areas that people can see?
Like different apps a lot of the times, or things like that, they'll label it something different. So like Pinterest, things like that, they put ads, they hide ads in there, and people know enough to respond to certain things like that. Like they'll call it a dog, they're selling a dog, or like things like that. But at the rally, what they do is they do legit put out, just in the paper, a fake ad selling somebody. Mm-hmm.
So, as a young woman growing up, we don't look for signs like on our car. If there's something on our car, is that something that we still need to be looking out for? Because you said it doesn't, that a lot of the times now it's not somebody coming out from behind you and grabbing you and pulling you in the car. But if something is like, I know that the handkerchief in the door handle was one, something on your windshield, is that something we still need to be looking out for? Or is that just not common anymore?
I would definitely keep an eye out for stuff like that. I mean, do we see it? Yes. If you do see something like that, I would definitely report it, because somebody might be following you. I mean, always just kind of keeping an eye out for your surroundings too, you know, being in groups when you're in a parking lot or leaving at night or anything like that. I would definitely, you know, usually you think it's in bigger cities, but honestly, I mean, there was a case that happened in my husband's hometown, small hometown, and I mean, he was trafficking some of the girls out of the school there. So it's, I mean, it happens. So I would just make sure, obviously, just being aware of those things. I don't want to say specifically that yes, it does happen, but we have seen cases where, or they put trackers in vehicles, like up under their windshields or things like that. Yeah.
Well, hold on. I forgot what I was going to ask that question. Oh, as human service professionals, like if we have suspicions, what do we do? Like, do we call 911? Do we call the hotline?
You can report it to local law enforcement, but also, yes, human trafficking hotline. Yep. Those would be your two probably. I mean, I would probably do local law enforcement first, but then if you have any other suspicions, then do the human trafficking. Because the only reason or the only way it would ever be reported as human trafficking is if the actual victim would report it, then that comes in through that. So if you're reporting it, then yes, it will. They will send or do some investigations on it. Mm-hmm.
You said Marissa is still missing?
Correct. That we know of. So, yeah. I know Becky has had some encounters with people that have possibly known where she's at, but we don't know for sure. So we don't really say. But
I heard a while back that there's like an international symbol, a hand symbol or something that a person can demonstrate to show to kind of secretly say, I'm being trafficked, help me. Is that true?
I'm going to say no. And we always ask Mary this too, because she was in that situation. Generally, somebody that is being in a situation that is a victim would never probably ever want to do a signal, because if they ever are caught, or what if they did do a signal, what would you do? We wouldn't want you to intervene, because you might not only harm yourself, but you might harm that victim as well. So there are reports out there that there is a hand signal. We don't ever go by it. We go by a gut feeling and just kind of those signs, like if you're seeing, any signs of any of that. So, yeah.
I've got two questions. One is, you mentioned apps. Is there like a particular app that traffickers may use? Or
Anything that can, kids that are on video games, Fortnite, any of those games, and they're intervening that way. So just being cautious of any dating app, always be cautious of who is on the dating apps. Any sort of interaction with, other people on apps, really. Facebook, Instagram, girls help me out, TikTok, what are those, Snapchat? I'm old, so I don't have any of that stuff. My boys do now, barely. But Yeah, so like anything like that, that there's interaction with other people. If you don't know the person that's reaching out to you, no, don't friend them. Anything, yeah, like that.
The other question I have is, you know, in a small community of either Mitchell, whether it be middle school or high school or around the reservations, I had heard one time that trafficking is such a situation as a young person, you know, doing or having sex for McDonald's or something, you know, I'm assuming that would be including trafficking.
Absolutely.
Exchange of goods.
Anything, yep, anything with an exchange, absolutely. Yep. And then even if they're under that age of 18, I mean, obviously that doesn't even, but yeah.
Does that, so any exchange of goods,
Mhm.
Does that have to be separate from a trafficker? Like, I guess what I'm trying to ask is, where is the line between like sex work and sex trafficking?
So I'm going to ask you this question, and because we always ask people this, if you have a child and they are younger and you ask them, what are you going to be when you grow up? Would they ever say that they wanted to be like a prostitute or something like that? Okay, so, and that's what we usually say. No, there has to be something on the back end that basically has happened in order for them to be in that position. I mean, that's usually what we say. Yes, it does happen, but, you know, prostitution is labeled that, but I foresee that there is something, I mean, there is a force that's happening on the backside that, you know, they're having to do, so.
So kind of along these same lines, I guess I always thought trafficking had to do with like movement, that, you know, somebody would have to be in one place and taken to another place. But, so what would be the difference between like a domestic abuse situation and a trafficking situation? And does it even matter ultimately if you call it trafficking or you call it exploitation of abuse?
So there's normally going to always be domestic abuse in trafficking, but not necessarily trafficking in domestic abuse, because there's not that exchange of any sort of good on the abuse side. Now, so that's usually how we define that differently. So does that make sense? And you don't actually have to like take them anywhere. A lot of the familial trafficking happens right in their own homes. So.
So anytime something is exchanged for the sexual act, then that's considered trafficking.
Yep. So like sexual exploitation, for instance, and I'm going to look at the college girls because obviously there's sexting that's going on. There's, you know, nudes that gets transferred. If anything happens, so let's say somebody receives a nude from somebody, whether it's through a text or whatever, and they show it to somebody else and ask for money, that is considered trafficking. Another thing would be is, I just lost my train of thought. Oh, if they basically come back and say, you know, if you don't do this, I'm going to show that. We were with the Department of Homeland Security, and they were just telling us about a situation where they have boiler rooms, they're called. They're actually rooms that are overseas in different countries, and these people are sitting in a room like this behind computers pretending to be a female or a male or whatever, and reaching out to these young boys, basically asking for pictures or for whatever. Once they have that, that's when they have them, and they say, if you don't give me your parents' credit card right now, I'm going to show this or exploit you. So what Department of Homeland Security was seeing is a lot of these boys were actually committing suicide because they didn't know what happened. They don't know what to do. They feel ashamed, but it's not their fault. So that's what we're always, again, trying to educate kids. It's not your fault. You didn't do, you didn't know what you were doing. So just, again, that education piece, that there is services that can help you, or just tell somebody that you, like a parent or somebody. So, yeah. Yes, so that grooming process happens, like I said. It could be just, again, that interaction, getting to know them, possibly even becoming a boyfriend. The grandmother's granddaughter, it was a boyfriend situation. They were dating for quite a while, and it turned and got friends involved, and the boyfriend started to sell her. Mary's story, she married her trafficker, again, knew him, thought she loved him, thought he loved her. They had a kid together, and that was a situation where she did get moved, obviously, to South America. But yes, I mean, there's different situations, but yeah. Mm-hmm.
Does it happen differently in other cultures or countries?
I mean, yes, there's, I mean, all kinds of different ways that trafficking can happen. You know, there are, in other countries, it is more like the kidnapping situation, but it can be a grooming situation as well. But here, I mean, we don't see a lot of the kidnapping piece and transporting them anywhere. It's more of that grooming process. And
When we look at labor trafficking, do we see more movement? Do we see, like, when we talk about pipelines, sort of, again, you see it's not maybe around, but maybe problematic immigration status or something, or disadvantage.
yeah, and it kind of just depends. So here, the clients that we have seen, it's not necessarily moving them around. They've been in a job for quite a while. But yes, it absolutely can, where they have people that they transport to other areas. But yes, I mean, and again, that is, you know, construction or whatever it may be, but they bring groups of people to certain areas.
So if groomers, you know, befriend you or become romantically involved with you, and they seem like fine people, as I'm sure, you know, they would to you in those first stages, how do you guard yourself from putting yourself in a bad situation without becoming paranoid?
That's a good question. I mean, I would probably say you get red flags, I think, that start to happen in a relationship too. So you'll probably see it's not just overnight that it's going to happen like that. But I mean, you just kind of got to watch your back. I honestly, it's hard to say. It's hard, you know, to explain or try to understand that. But just really in groups, maybe start dating more in group settings. We didn't have to worry about any of this, or you know, when I was dating, I guess, you know, because you usually knew who they were by a family member or something, or in college you hung out with them, or now there's so many dating apps, you really don't know those people if you're interacting that way. So just be cautious of, you know, what you're doing, your surroundings, where you're meeting, you know, meeting in public places. So.
You know, as a therapist, it comes to mind that oftentimes the person that's being trafficked probably has reached out because they're in a situation where they've got a lot of negative beliefs about themselves to begin with, or even isolation.
Vulnerabilities, yep.
And so I think your piece about educating clinics or other professionals, and I look at this room full of young, up-and-coming professionals, is that they're the ones that are going to be able to see some of those red flags, versus oftentimes I think the person that gets into them, the red flags are always there, but they don't see them until it's too late.
Yeah.
Where I think sometimes the other helpers in the community are the ones that see the red flags.
The vulnerabilities are huge. I think is big too. Yep.
teachers and professionals have to go through as mandatory reporters for child abuse and neglect.
Yep.
Is this being included in that?
We would want that, yes. We, so within like the Sioux Falls area, a lot of the surrounding school districts, we have came in and done the education with administrative staff and staffing and stuff like that. It's a process to get into school districts to do this, but we would absolutely love to. Wherever we are welcome to come and have Margaret or any of our trainers come in and train, absolutely. You know, if we can get in, absolutely.
So something for us to push.
Yes, please, please. Yeah.
As a society, we are finding ourselves, and the news and everything that's going on at the moment, a high-profile group that probably are primed for trafficking, and that's young adults who have gender uncertainty.
Mm-hmm.
Have you found an increase in profiling by the traffickers to this particular group since they are now such high profile?
That's a part of the vulnerabilities that we're talking about. So yes, they do have a higher vulnerability for traffickers to reach out to them, absolutely. Just they're insecure with themselves, so that's what the trafficker is viewing and knows. I mean, victims will be in, you know, anywhere, like mall or whatever, and those traffickers will notice them, how they're walking, their structure, who they're with, anything like that, just how they're walking, if they're shy, if they're not. They're smart, and that's what's sad. Those vulnerabilities will definitely happen. So. Well, thank you.
Anything that needs to happen at the state level and the legal level to make it harder or to bring traffickers to prosecute them? I've heard that very few of them are actually prosecuted legally.
Yep, it is hard. I know that the state is working. I mean, I know Becky goes out and does some legislature stuff or works directly with legislature to do, to basically, well, try to put a stop to it, I guess, kind of by putting in now that they're like purchasers, just different languages. So the trafficker and the people that are purchasing the sex will obviously be prosecuted more, but it is very hard to identify trafficking because usually they take a lower plead. So it's not always that easy. But yeah. Well, thank you guys very much.
Our next lectureship, and it's the folks from it's this SURF project out in Lead, this Stanford, let's see, what is it? Stanford Underground Research Facility is going to be presenting about their search for dark matter. So really looking forward to that. So that will be on March 28th. So thank you for coming.